Is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Looks like I'm just going back over that poll, the attendance. Looks like 9% of you guys did. Just so you guys know, this is something we're looking to do quite often for the Power Platform. It was an awesome option. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but it was $49 per person. But we did a 2-day. It was an awesome session. Tons of speakers. Myself and other colleagues, we were there talking about flow being one of the many items, and we're going to talk about that today. But also the other elements of the Power Platform. It was amazing. It truly was, and for the price point, it can't be beaten. Keep your eyes open. If this is definitely going to be an introductory look at this. We're going to have a couple of pieces that talk about the integration, right? What else does Flow play with? Because that term, the Power Platform, is super powerful, right? Power BI, we got Microsoft Flow, we got Power Apps. They work so well together. We'll see a couple of pieces of those other technologies, and this one just for conversational purposes. But coming up, we're also going to be having an Azure, Chris, what was the official name? It's Azure Week. We're doing the webinars throughout the entire week, like 4 days, right?
Yeah, Azure Data Week.
Azure Data Week. And within that, we're basically covering a ton of Azure technologies. And if you're thinking, why the heck are you talking about Azure? I'm here for Flow. Power Platform, Microsoft Flow, these are all Azure services. So keep your eye out. It's going to be another amazing price point. And from here, if you think about the timing, right, we're going to do intro today. By the time that shows up, oh my gosh, you're going to be ready for the advanced stuff. So it'll be a perfect opportunity to get that. We're going to have a lot of speakers, so definitely check that out. But you're here with me today. So today, we're going to be all about intro to Flow. So I'll bring this up just for entertainment purposes. It's a photo. Some of you, I know there's a lot of you here in the room, so I can't really put a poll out to see if anyone knows that photo's taken, but I bet you out of the 157, a couple of you have. I just find it funny. Some people get it, but that's Puerto Rico, the Parque de las Palomas, fun little place. But I'm a training content manager here at Pragmatic Works, been with PW here, now going on 5+ years. Been doing training for about 2.5. Before that, I was with their software side. Once you write a book, you kind of have to brag about it. It ain't exactly bringing in all the money in the world to me, but it's just great having the opportunity to sit down along people like Devin, Brian Knight, Mitchell, putting together this Microsoft Power BI Quick Start Guide. So it's just something out there. This is all about Power BI. We actually are going to be looking to work on another book that's going to be about Power Platform integration. So that book is actually going to be Power BI, Flow, Power Apps, and how they all work together. So definitely keep your eye out for that one. Just my social media information, as you know, it's all about connecting and networking. So you have my blog here. I do quite predominantly a lot of stuff on Power BI, but I'm looking to extend that. Been doing a lot of stuff with Azure Data Factory and other Azure services. And of course, my Twitter handle, which we're going to take a little bit of a look at today, because it'll be one of the technologies we're going to kind of dive into and tinker with. And of course, email there for any questions. As always with these webinars, this content will be recorded and it'll be uploaded post. So if for some reason, I'm going to try to go at a pace where we can all follow along. It's a little more slide heavy, this webinar here, but when we get into the demos, I'll try to make it at a pace so everyone can follow along. 2 very simplistic demos we're going to be going through, but I'll give you the crux and the understanding, the terminology. For those of you who possibly are already members of our on-demand learning platform, we have an intro to Flow, advanced Flow, so definitely things that you can definitely follow on beyond this to extend it even further. But since I got slides, let's start making our way through them. So flows are going to be working with. Of course, you can sign up. You can get a free license. You can also do a trial for an extended period of time to get access to all the features. But licensing tends to be a little bit of a mystery when it comes to Flow. As we kind of having these conversations, working with organizations, how is Power BI licensed? How is Power Apps licensed? How is Flow licensed? And they all interact with each other. What the heck is going on? Well, we are going to have a slide dedicated to licensing, so we will get to that. But if you're going to be following along with me, I actually am going to be pointing from a SharePoint list. So to make that connection, to basically access a live file on SharePoint, you do have to have a minimum, like a plan 1 access. But if you have the free license, which for a period of time effectively gives you, the community version gives you all access for, I cannot remember exactly what, 60 or 90 days, but you'll be able to do it there. Like I said, naturally, the file you don't have available, you're going to see in my example, I'm just grabbing any old file. The idea is going to be, hey, give me an update when something gets added to this list. But we'll extrapolate that example to see, just by doing a simple demonstration, how does that apply to us realistically in the real world. So should be pretty easy to follow along with this. I happen to be using Twitter in this example, SharePoint. But like I said, you could switch it up, do whatever you need. We'll talk about connections and things such as that. But yeah, we're going to go Flow, SharePoint, OneDrive is out there. So this is just the bare minimum. So if you want to follow specifically with what I'm going to be doing. So we're going to do a quick overview. We're going to talk about templates. We're going to talk about the basics of Flow terminology. So whenever you start talking to your colleagues, they can be oh so impressed. And we're going to actually then leverage some of the templates because there's a fantastic template library out there. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? If you go and you type in what you're looking for and it's there and present, why not? Yes, we're also going to create something from scratch because sometimes it's not going to meet the beat for what you're needing. You need something a little more specific, a little more customized. Just so you know, though, if a template meets 75% of your criteria, go ahead and start with a template and you can modify them, right? All it's doing is pre-populating some various items in there. So just go ahead and don't hesitate, right? And of course, as part of our second demonstration where we're going to be creating from scratch, we're going to see that process. We're actually going to do a very specific approach, which I think is one of the more powerful capabilities. It'll make more sense as we get through these next slides, like why use flow, what's the purpose, how is it going to affect me in my work environment, the approval flow, right? That's really just a design, just a style of action that you can take within a flow, but it can be extremely powerful in those scenarios. And really what you should be doing in this webinar is thinking about your current processes that you have in place that this could potentially replace, and you can automate any of those manual processes. We're going to see it. This is a great tool for exactly that reason. And that's what we're seeing here when we talk about what flow is. It's all about workflow automation. That's like the buzzword, like how you go to Microsoft, they got workflow automation. So it's going to be, but it's just about, routine tasks or anything that you're doing manually. If you're doing something repetitively over and over, like every Monday at 9, you do this. Well, set up a flow. We'll see that you can schedule it, or you can maybe make that process become even more dynamic. And instead of having it be scheduled, you can go ahead and make something be based off of what's called a trigger, which we'll see. So it's basically monitoring and looking for some sort of, I hate using the word action, some sort of event to take place, and then it'll take those corresponding actions that you have specified, right? And also, keep in mind for these processes that you're doing now every day, also think about input. I know we're not going to focus on Power Apps. Power Apps works great, right? Instead of having everybody have a link to an Excel spreadsheet online or a SharePoint list, and you have individuals manually entering data in there, shoot, why not just go ahead and create a Power App, create an application that users can use on their computer or on their mobile device to input that information. And then you can allow Flow to say, okay, someone's inputting information. Let me see what they're inputting. I like it. That's correct. It meets my standards. Push it all the way through and write it to my SharePoint list, write it to my Excel document, whatever it might be. There is some fantastic opportunity here to really streamline what you're doing potentially every single day. So why automation? Well, it's pretty much why not automation, okay? So you can go in multiple ways to do this. So you set up what is going to be done within the flow, but you also are in strict control of when the flow operates. So if you need some strict control, of course, you can set it so it's just a manual trigger. I actually love the mobile element because there's an option within Flow to do what's called a button. So you can say, yes, I want it to run every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 a.m. That's going to be my trigger. It's called the scheduled flow. We'll see more details on that later. Or you can have it monitor, which is just going to be based off of triggers and activities. Or you can literally say, here's a button. And the way you can do this, which I love it on the mobile device, you just bring it up and it looks like a giant button. And you just click it and it says go, and boom, it runs. So if you have some sort of process where it's more based, like maybe you have a stand-up meeting or a scrum meeting where everyone's talking and conversing, right? Obviously, well, not at this point. The computers aren't listening in and keeping track of this. Well, it might be, but it's basically something that's disconnected, right? There's no actual something we can monitor within the machines, the network, anything like that. And when you're done with the Scrum meeting, that's when you need this specific flow to run. Well, you can have a button. And those of you who want to get really fancy, you can actually purchase like an IoT device, maybe a big old red button that you put next to your keyboard, and you can wirelessly hook that up and have it whoop, kick off your flow. So it's pretty fun, pretty neat, a lot of different ways we can do it. But we are in control of this, which is really nice. So don't think, oh, I'm doing this manually because I need very specific things done. You can. And we're going to do introductory here, but just know the extensibility, the extent at what you can scale this out and what you could do. There's absolutely an advanced area where you can go heavier into the code side. We're not going to focus on the code because I don't want to scare anybody. It's intro. We want to see how easy we can adjust to this. We're going to take advantage of the graphical user interface for that purpose. Now, a very popular term, As you can see here on this very formal definition of workforce multiplication, the citizen developers. I see this used quite often now, specifically with these Microsoft technologies. It's definitely a focal marketing campaign here with Power BI, Power Apps, and Flow. This entire Power Platform, the idea is it's no longer needed in the hands of the tech individuals, that IT-specific department. Now we, the business users, we can become citizen developers. We know and understand our business process. We understand the data itself. We can now leverage these tools to meet our needs. And it very much is real. You shouldn't be intimidated by these tools by any means. Just know that the more you invest in it, you could get a little more down the technical path, but you're just like opening up your palette of tools when you do that, right? So we're going to see how easy it is to not do any coding, but just know that you could go a lot further. Tons of connection options. You can see here 225 plus. It's overwhelming. They keep adding it. It's fantastic. Very easy to search and navigate through them. You can kind of organize them by specific type of, am I doing email? Am I doing some sort of social media? Very nice, easy way to control these. You create a connector as well. It basically saves the necessary information in there for then easy reuse in future flows. So you don't have to do it every single time, unless maybe you want to just log in with some different credentials, right? You can make like 2 connectors to Twitter, one using, XYZ's account and one using ABC's account, something like that. But great, awesome, fantastic, love the interface. Of course, security, regulation, there absolutely is elements within here on the administrative side. Who should have access to this? We can do actually, you can control things even at a data layer. Now, because we're talking more workflow automation here, the regulation here mainly becomes into the axis of who should be able to edit or manipulate the flows themselves, who should be able to run the flows. If they're going to be more of a manual or scheduled process, they can control that. That's really where the regulation comes in on the flow side. But the Power Platform as a whole has the right regulations in the right places. It's quite fantastic. So real world uses. So here it is. Power Platform right here, they work all together. You have Power BI, the data analytics and visualization tool. You've got Power Apps, which gives you this capability for write back, right? That's that really nice, fun buzzword where you can take your internal applications, like I said, that process that individuals use, like they sign into SharePoint, they go to this Excel spreadsheet and they manually type everything in. Well, you can make this and put a great little wrapper on top of it, create some standardization of data entry so that make sure people are putting in the right entry, make it much easier, create drop-down lists. You can have it be bound behind security based off of the user that's logged in. Just fantastic. So visualize with Power BI, write back, you can edit, modify, or insert depending on how you allow privileges with Power Apps, and then Flow can automate that entire process. So that when someone writes some information and they want to add data into a spreadsheet that will eventually be visualized in Power BI, we can set up some sort of approval. And we can say, look and see that Steve input this entry, but this doesn't look correct. There's a little anomaly here with the number of hours worked. I need to check on this before we can put this in. So it actually will pause the flow. We're going to go through an approval process. And it's actually going to pause it and wait for that approval. And then you can go even further. You can go through the process of maybe you deny it based off of certain criteria, or you can actually monitor it. So based off of what Steve put in, maybe if he puts the regular amount of hours, it goes to his immediate supervisor. But if it exceeds 8 hours beyond the limit, not only will it go to a supervisor, it's going to go to you, the big boss, right? Because that's an elevated request. What's going on here? More individuals are going to be made part of this approval process. You can go and make things so that dynamic depending on entry. And these work seamlessly together. It's fantastic. When you make a connector and flow, you've got it available for you in Power Apps. It's great. And the mobile experience, fantastic, which we see here, a little bit of a kind of a small preview on the right-hand side. I love navigating through there, like I said, with flows and buttons. It's an awesome way. And if you're on the move, on the go, out for lunch for something, you'll get a notification if you set things up on your device, on your phone, and you can approve it right there on the spots. We'll see that in real time here. So, of course, who is this for? Hopefully I haven't been scaring anyone away with my conversation, but it's for the citizen developer. It's for the business user. We're going to see, we're not going to write code in here. We just need to understand how this works, where to pull stuff from, how we can benefit, and we're going to go through that. You're going to be knowledgeable for that at the end of this webinar, right? But there is something that effectively is built on top of Microsoft Flow, and that's called Logic Apps, another Azure service, but it is definitely more from the IT professional where we have more capability from a coding perspective. One thing that should be noted though, it's kind of interesting, I talked about how much I liked using a button to kick off a flow if we need that, if that works for our goals, our needs. Logic Apps actually doesn't have a button trigger. So sometimes you'll go through and create this complex application, or sorry, this automation flow with Logic Apps, and you want it to be manual, right? So what you end up doing is you actually create Microsoft Flow with a button, and all it does is kick off a Logic app. So it's kind of funny that there's no button. I assume that the button will be coming to Logic Apps relatively soon. But Logic Apps is meant for more the IT end of things. It's interface and GUI that you work with. Does have a drag and drop feel to it, but there's a lot more capability from a coding perspective. We'll see with us on the Flow side, for us as citizen developer, we absolutely can go in there, and it does have that drag and drop feel, which is really nice. You have some nice like auto completion elements. So it's really, really fun, really good. So of course, when you go on the Logic Apps, the IT side of things, if you create a flow and a little additional logic needs to be built into it that's not capable in Flow, but it is in Logic Apps, we're going to see you can just very simply export your flow, and then it can be imported directly into Logic Apps, and then that work can actually be continued, which is quite nice. So there's the concept, that term for scalability, right, is very simple, very straightforward when we talk about between Flow and Logic Apps. And just in case, if there's any questions, I saw there's one over there. If there's time at the end, I'll try to acknowledge some of those. But what happens is at the very end, we do capture all the questions there. And what I'll do is I'll usually either get a blog going, or I will actually go through the process of individually responding to you guys. So I'll try to leave some time at the end so I can go through these guys. And yeah, and when I get to that point, maybe Crystal, you can help me out and just like write answered in the answer section or something for me. But I see you guys, don't worry, I'll make sure. Export option, sorry, pardon about that. So yeah, of course, sharing. We're gonna see this in the, when we get into the home page for Microsoft Flow, but naturally, it's a little bit different concept, right? When you create a flow, you're just dictating a process to happen in the background. So from a sharing perspective, we're really only talking about two things. And this is a common method for sharing, like when you talk about Power BI or Power Apps, it's a similar interface. You can either share, because this is all tied to your O365 tenant, right? Azure is associated with that, and you get your Azure Active Directory. So when you invite users, you can actually invite users and or groups, which is quite nice. So if you got a whole group of, these said, citizen developers, this group of marketing, and they should all have the capability of, editing and, making changes to this flow potentially, you could just type in the name of that AD security group if it's been created. So quite often when you kind of leverage these technologies, there might be a slight request or opportunity to modify potential security groups just to make your life easier here. But from Flow, all we have to think about is two things really, right? Are you going to be an owner? Or basically, if you create it, you're the owner straight up. Think about it as an admin. Or are you going to be a run-only user, right? So that's the real thing. The owner is, by default, the person who created it. Boom, they're the owner. They can add other individuals as owners or run-onlys. Owners can create new flows, delete flows, manipulate flows, everything you could imagine. And they can invite more users, right? They can invite that. Sorry for the slide deck. I'll fix that after the fact. For run-only users, they have this capability of viewing the flows, whether it's on their mobile device and or the kind of web interface if they're going through the PC, and they can just basically kick off the flow itself, or if there's a button, they can execute and hit that button. That's all that can be accomplished here. So pretty straightforward. That's it. There's not too in the realm of complication. Flow is pretty straightforward. Power Apps is very similar to when you're sharing an app. That's to a degree the same kind of idea, but there's a little more that goes into that because maybe you want to deal with permissions related to data that's being shared. But Power Apps for another day. To this one. Of course, everybody would love it if it was a nice simplified view of pricing. Unfortunately, nowadays, it's not the case always, right? There's always something extra, but this is pretty straightforward. The issue I find with a lot of individuals really comes to the fact that, the Flow, Power BI, and Power Apps, they work all well together, they cross-stream, so how do they impact each other, and how is licensing different between each other? And they are. So effectively, Flow has you're basically charged potentially, as you can see here, per execution. So number of runs is what you acquire with licensing. Okay, and the thing is, it is additive. So you can see, like, if you get Flow free, 750, and then Flow for Office, and depending on the tier of O365 license that you have, that will change. But you can get Flow executions through Dynamics, through O365. If you decide to purchase a couple Flow plans for users, those get added. So cumulatively, you could have 200,000, 400,000, 500,000 executions within your total instance. So basically, this is a little more advanced, but if you have a O365 global administrator can actually go in and see how many Flow runs have been provisioned to your tenant, and it's actually broken down like, well, you got 70,000 from this, you've got 20,000 in total for the licenses, you've got so on and so forth, but it's all together. The Plan 1 and Plan 2, effectively what that does is just extend out what those licensed users are capable of developing. Do we want them to have premium connectors? Are we going to be doing something what's called the Common Data Model, or the CDS, Common Data Service? That's going to have an impact on those Flow 1 and 2. Now, that being said, you're like taking this in, you're going to memorize this and know everything, but do keep an eye out. There was an announcement. There's going to be an adjustment coming up in October to billing and pricing on Flow. I think they're just trying to streamline things between the three platforms. So keep an eye out. I haven't heard much on what that restructure is going to look like, but the time frame at least has been noted that there's going to be a small change to that. So something just to keep an eye out on, right? But executions, that's the important thing to keep in mind here. Number of executions. So I have a Flow, it runs, there's 1, 2. That's an important thing when you have to think about what your Flow is doing and what is the concept of the execution. So this should very much be in your mindset when you're designing. It gets a little more advanced, like we have to think about things like, okay, well, I want to, maybe I want to monitor Twitter, and I want to capture any tweets that have the hashtag for my organization, hashtag Pragmatic Works. Well, do I want that Flow to run and keep recapturing the same stuff? Well, no. I want it to run, and I want to capture the time frame at which that execution occurred, so that I can then, on the next execution, when it notices, I want to say, hey, only run this Flow when a new tweet basically post this date. Anything after this date and beyond, capture that hashtag tweet. Okay, then get the new time. So it's this kind of incremental update design process that can be something that's extremely effective in really managing and effectively using your licenses, right? Since it's on runs, let's use it more effectively. Or maybe we don't do it every time. Maybe we know, like, if we do that, man, it's going to run 20 times a day, and it's going to pick up 5 tweets every time. Well, why not just run it at the end of the day and grab all 100 tweets, right? Just do it all in one sum and just get them all together. It's really dependent on what are your realistic needs within the organization. How fast is this data being consumed? But knowing and understanding the license should really help you think about and understand what kind of design, what are the requests and the needs for this Flow. Very, very important to always keep on the frame of your, kind of on the tip of your mind there. So lastly, promise you guys, we're almost through here, almost going to get into the Flow side of things. A few terms, right? So we want to understand this so that when I say something, you're like, what is he talking about? Or if you start to watch the videos on our on-demand learning, you got an idea. Triggers and actions. This is effectively, how I said when people say Flow, workflow automation, that's what they say. I actually, depending on who I'm talking to, when someone says, what is Flow? I say, it's triggers and actions. That's what it is. Right? Either it's going to be a manual trigger, an automation trigger, a schedule trigger, but it's a trigger. You can see those 3 options are there. This is what starts our Flow off. And we have choices in this realm. Some of them, and this is just a decision. You have to understand, once again, what are the needs for this data? Once a trigger has occurred, then the rest of your Flow is comprised of actions. Now, there's kind of like a subclass under actions. You can have control actions, things that are like iterating loops. You can have pauses, things like approval requests. We're going to see something like that. So there is kind of a palette of various different actions in there, but we'll see those, and there's a ton, right? It's fantastic. Basically, all actions and triggers to that, to speak on the same lines. They're all, what's nice is we'll see when we go to the interface, bound by the technology. So, Outlook 365. That'll be the subject, that'll be the technology, and there's a choices of triggers for that technology, and then there's a bunch of different actions for that technology. So that's we'll see there's a couple ways to navigate through these options. That's one I really like to use. I usually type in the technology I'm looking for so I can refine my search a little bit easier. And that's what we're gonna be doing. The last little piece here, don't need to worry too much about workflow definition language. That's just something that's happening kind of underneath the sheets there, under the hood, I guess you could say. It's basically it's the code that is generated. So we work in a graphical user interface, but as always, if anyone here has done anything else like SSIS, RS, there's always code that's written in the background. We leverage the GUI, Power BI. You create visuals and you do all this stuff and you do all these transforms. Well, you've got mQuery has all those transformation language in the background, right? So workflow definition language, it's that under the hood items. You do have potential to access that and do some advanced things with it, but as is in that description, it is advanced, so we won't be covering it today. So connectors. There's a couple of options. We have standard connectors, which don't have any indication. They just look like what we're seeing here. There is potentially some premium ones as well. They would say premium, so we'll kind of see that when we log in. And there's also other ones that are called experimental. They actually have two terms. There's beta and experimental. Beta is pretty stable, and you're fine to, use them. I would say betas are okay to use in a flow because they're pretty much near their final state, right? When it goes generally available, it's very likely, it will not break the flow. Now, there are experimental connectors, and I would advise not putting anything in production that's using an experimental connector. There's a very real possibility that the underlying engine, whatever's running it, the core code that is being leveraged, could be altered, and that would break your flow potentially, and that would not be good for production, right? So I would stay away from the experimental ones, or just keep it at a development level. Don't put that in production. But there's a couple tiers, right? The premium, though, that does take elevated accounts, those flow plans, but it'll indicate it, it'll show it. And I do believe that's what I think. There's a charge per execution and number of premium connectors. That's going to be a little more specified, I believe, in the upcoming October. Now, this is just me, conjecture, just thinking about what they could do to make it better. But it's very, very visibly noted, so that's the good thing. This is meant to just be like, whoa. Because yes, there's a ton of connectors. That's all that's there for, a little wow factor. Remember I talked about different flavors of actions, controls. These are very nice, and I would say when you start to leverage controls, you're moving away from the very simple introductory flows, and you're moving into that kind of medium level, that kind of 200 level type of flow design. This is where you create iterator control. So apply each, apply to each, do until, switch, conditional statements. We're going to do a condition at the end. I'd say that's probably the most straightforward condition. Switch isn't too bad either, but it's logical expressions here, right? A condition. If this happens, do this. If it does not happen, do that. And it can get pretty complex, right? Well, if it said no, then let me do a different condition. And I've seen it get nested pretty heavily. But the nice thing is that the capabilities are present and here for us. We will look at a condition, very simple manner, but just so you can see how that is set up and established. Now, templates, like I said, I still use them to this day, right? Because one thing, if it doesn't meet my needs, that second little dot there, it can be modified, right? So it's an awesome way to do this. We go through these as well in the intro and advanced classes using the templates. So just know that they are awesome. They are fantastic. I take advantage to this day, and I just modify as I see fit. Now, we talked about actions. We saw them. Now we have these triggers. Sorry, that is in there. Let me kind of move that real quick for you. All right, there we go. We got triggers. So after the action, we have the actions occur directly after the trigger. Triggers are pretty straightforward. There's definitely far more action than there are triggers, but still separated by technology type. So you choose. So in this case, you can see it's a SharePoint saying, hey, when an item is created, as part of this, you have to point to a SharePoint library. So you got to be somewhat specific on there. But once it's done, the trigger is gone, and whatever actions we want, we're going to see it. Now, of course, we've seen the three. This is just kind of rinse and repeat. Like I said, I love the button on the mobile example. Schedule flows just as you want. You can get a little more advanced. You can get specific. You can add variables. Like I said, it's getting a little more advanced, but you could have it be dynamic, right? Whatever time is collected off a previous execution, let that be, say, hey, we're running this at 8 o'clock today. Let's capture that and do plus 2 hours. So it increases by 2 every day. Seems kind of weird, so don't think that's too realistic an example, but you could. Approval, I think it's one of the cooler ones in the process. We are going to go through this process, but you have some options. We're going to see when we use these options that we can have multiple approvers and we have to wait for everybody to get back to us. We can set this up so that the first responder can kick off everything. We'll see. When we go into this, we'll hit the drop down and we'll see that you can choose how the approval process will interact. Second, for some reason, it's not moving to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, the O365 functionality is great too because it taps right into that. So you have the auto completion. Who should this be emailed to? Once again, individual user or a group as well. It can even get to the point with Office 365 that you can do things. I've done this more in the Power App side of things, but you can say, who should see this? Well, supervisor, employees under this supervisor. So that's a nice way to do it. So this obviously depends on how the security structure is of your organization, but if it's nice, clean, and organized, you can take advantage of it like it should be. It's pretty powerful and pretty neat. It's one of those connectors you can take advantage of. So we're going to go through, definitely going to kind of complete this. We'll see it come to my email. Kind of tough to show my phone, but you have to take my word. When my email comes in, it's also going to give me a notification on my phone. I can choose either which way to actually approve it itself. So you can see here's the three different options and capability. So I know, breathing a sigh of fresh air. Whew. But it's important. You got to have a base. You got to have a foundation. So now that that's done, let's dive into Flow. So for any of you who have never logged in and never gone through this process, all you need to do is go to flow.microsoft.com. There's probably a ton of different ways you can get here, but that's the way I go for it. And you just sign yourself in. Now, it's important to note, just in case, maybe it's the first time you sign in, but your organization has been using this for a little while. On the upper right-hand corner, you do have what are called environments. These are just, environments is a great word. It's like a virtual container, right? So if I have flows that exist in this environment, when I switch over to a different one, so you can see this is what I have in here. If I go over to, so there's this one that we use for Pragmatic Works right here. So you get to see Pragmatic Works flows. So yeah, these are all that are running and going. Anything that's kind of have this little X, the circle with the line through it, or it's kind of low lighted. That means it's there, but it's been disabled, so they're not running. But these are just a bunch of different flows. So you can see we have these here and everything's defined. Now, if you want to kind of go cross environments, you can't really do that. What you'd need to do is export the flow itself, and then you could import it, right? Very easy, very simple and easy to do, and we'll see that. You can see the imports here. The export shows up when you actually go through the process. When you actually dive into a flow itself, you'll see the export option presents itself. But here in this home area, we have a couple different options. You can go through the process and actually click in here if you want just a quick little search. I'm doing stuff on SharePoint, I'm doing stuff on Twitter, whatever you want, you can actually start right here. You do have this kind of, hierarchical kind of by business area, something for sales team, for something for productivity. They've broken it down lots of different ways in popular services. So just a nice landing page to try to get you going a little bit quicker. But when you get in here, you're probably going to know exactly what you want and what you're looking for. Now, we're going to see in this approval section, this will pop up a little bit later. So we can see if I had any flows here, they would appear. We got a nice fresh instance that we're going to be working with. So you get to take advantage and see everything from fresh and new, and we'll do it together. Sorry, I'm just cleaning up my other screen here, closing out that PowerPoint. So of course, flows, I got a couple close down ones. Whenever you decide to invite anyone into a flow itself, it actually moves over into the team flow section. That's all that means. Is like we have multiple owners and or run only users. It'll present itself here. Just move over. Now, business process flows is something we're not going to be covering today, only because this does require an elevated license. This is actually how you create flows that leverage and work and integrate with the common data model or the common data services, right? So you can see here that it says data. You can only do this if you have a production account. So if you are doing like a trial, I think it limits you. You can't do this. But this effectively just stands up a database. Now, it's frowned upon to describe this as a database. Like, it's not a database. I hear this all the time, but effectively it creates what are called entities in the background. They very much mimic a table, but this is based off of Dynamics CRM, right? You might have seen or heard a lot of different stuff. Dynamics CRM has been becoming far more integrated into Microsoft toolset. And Dynamics CRM's entities is this. This basically creates a a standard set of entities: customer, contacts, sales, products, a bunch of different entities that you can then sync up and just bring data into it, and you can create your own one. But here you can kind of connect that with a business process flow. So a little more advanced license. AI Builder, it's in preview, but with the increase of AI and this kind of, I also hear the terms, cognitive services, these capabilities, they're trying to make it more approachable, more accessible for the main user, but this would definitely veer into a more advanced area. So for us, we're going to go right here, and we're going to see that we have these templates. So for our first template, what we're going to take advantage of is we're going to go right in and let's see here. Like I said, you have this top, so you can specify. But I'm going to go with so we'll go with SharePoint. Oops, got to spell things right. When a file is created. I like to put my technology type and kind of what I want it to do. So we can see here. Let's see. The one I'm looking for isn't present. Let me see. When a file is created. We want one that's going to basically take my profile and leverage it. It's effectively this one up here. Look here, because I wanted to get my profile. We want it there. We want to send email. Oh, let's do this. Send me an email when a file is created. Yeah, basically we can use this one. I'm probably going to knock off that the notes that you see at the bottom because I'm not going to need to use it. But that's the nice thing. Like I said, you can leverage the templates and you can modify them. So what we'll do is we're going to click on this template. You can see it's going ahead and it's setting me up with what we're going to connect to. So this flow uses these connectors. If you don't have it set up, it'll say connect now. I believe is the button. This is showing me how I'm connected. Basically, that process would be if you go to add connector, it just brings this up. It knows it's automatically using an Office 365 one, so you would just sign into your account. That's all. That's how that works. Let me make sure I didn't mess mine up. Let me get my check marks. Okay, it should. There we go. Oh, let me try here. Oh, okay. Maybe just a UI issue. So we've got all the things we need for this. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. And what this does, once again, it automatically just populates all the items within the canvas area that we need. So we can see this area here. I'm going to go ahead, like I said, I'm not going to use the notes at the bottom, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that item. But if we go up here, it's saying, now it just created the connection and the respective triggers and or actions. So just remember, up here, the trigger, that'll become a little more noticeable when we go through the process to create this from scratch. But it's needing us to input some information, right? So if I hit the drop down, because it's based off of my connection, it actually does some nice retention of previously leveraged accounts. And what it for the most part can see a lot of what you can see just with the connection. So what I always recommend, though, is going through this. And if you put in a search for something in particular, you'll see it'll populate at the bottom. I always recommend it. I've seen some odd behaviors if I would have just left the URL. If you see the actual site show up, I would select it. It just seems like it works better when you choose something that's been found within the trigger, which is what I did. I pasted it in, saw that it popped up, and selected it. Now, as you can see, anything with this little red asterisk sign here, as you can see right there, this is just going to require, this is a mandatory, so I'm going to go ahead and find my library. Now, for me, I've got this little library right here. It's just called, I think, Intro to Flow is what it is. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to find it. There it is. Now, if we wanted to, if there was a directory inside of this library, we could specify, hey, just go into this one directory within there. I'm going to leave it blank. We can go ahead and let it just scan the entire item. And you can see, and that makes sense. I'm saying, hey, when a file is created, that's what we're grabbing. And we're grabbing the properties of it. So a lot of different options. When we create a trigger and or an action, we're going to see that effectively it outputs quite a few properties that are available at our disposal. So whatever we grab out of this SharePoint trigger, I actually will have access to it in what's called dynamic content. I'm going to be able to use that, which you can actually see down below. So here, it's just simply grabbing my profile account here. It's just because I said send me an email. So it took my items. Nothing special, nothing needs to get done. It's just grabbing who I'm logged in as. Straightforward and simple. Now you can see here, this is the send email. And what's done here is it's using my connector for Outlook. But in the two, it has this little icon, matches what we see above it, and it just says mail. This is what we talk about for dynamic content. So from this get my profile, we can see that we get actually a lot of options. So I hit see more. These are all of the output items, basically the properties, the fields that were collected from that. So it's going to get my profile, and from that I can get the mail, basically the email, something about me. If I don't think I have anything on the about me, the company name, all the potential information that's housed in my O365 profile. I can grab it. Job title, supervisor, all this fun stuff. So it's pretty neat. For us, it was pretty straightforward. Like I said, the template knows, like, okay, we're monitoring to see if a library has a new item created, and when that happens, send me an email. So it's just, it put in mail. So that's what I need, but all you need to do is click on this, and it adds it in. Here, it added some plain text, so new file added, hyphen, that's static, hard-coded, it's always going to be there, and then the name of the file. And notice it's the icon from the top SharePoint. So what you always see here is that the dynamic content kind of breaks down each trigger and or action that has been used, that you have access to. And look at all the available options for the properties. When a new file gets added, what do I want from that file? There is a ton of stuff in here. And it put it in. So we want to customize this? We absolutely can. Hi, given name. So it's going to look into my profile, get that. A new file, call, comma, give its name, blah, blah, blah. All set and done. Right? So what we can do here is I'll just go here and say my first flow, and then I'll just put template, just like that. And I'm going to hit save. And then there's two ways you can go about this, right? Once this is done, okay, it's done. You can either go here to test, and you can say, I'll perform a trigger action, which basically puts this in a suspended state where it's out there monitoring and waiting for this to execute. And also I should have noted also, flow checkers here, you'll get a little red indication if there's anything wrong. If there's something that's been missing, not added, if there's some issue with the connection, it'll actually tell you here. You can click on it, and it'll bring you to that respective area. So now that this is here, I just want to show the interface. I can hit the previous. Now this always does show up. I know I just saved it. Everybody here saw it. And it's saying, hey, you're going to lose something. Are you sure? I know it'll make you nervous, but as long as you're confident you saved it, which we are, you can hit OK. This is just the information of this flow. You can edit descriptions, fun things like that if you wanted to. Shows the connectors being used, owners. If I want to edit that and change who's an owner, who's a run only, I can. Notice also here is the ability to export it. I was looking for it away. Or like you saw for us in our environment, we went ahead and had some of these disabled. So you could turn it off if you wanted to. So the idea here is I've got a flow, right? It's waiting now, looking at that library, this library, to see if a new file gets added. So let's try to trigger this. So I'm going to go here, hit upload. I'm just going to go, I think I put something simple on the desktop here, just like that. It's uploading. See here, pretty simple. Now, I don't know if you heard it, but if I go over to my mail, you can see that I just received this, all right? I just got a little email in here that's telling me, hi Manuel, maybe I think it was, I forget, it was display name, or I can't remember what field is used. We can go back, but it found that from my O365 profile. It took my email, so that worked out. A new file called Twitter Mentions was added, and it's located in Flow. So that was just intro to Flow. That was all said and done. Super nice, simple. You can see the subject line too. New file added, Twitter Mentions, boom. Super simple, super sweet. And if we go here, if I refresh this, we can see that there is this kind of, hey, this executed. If you kind of go in, it breaks down the flow itself. And you can see some more advanced stuff, but you can see kind of the output of what's been done from this. If you scroll down, it presented in a thumbnail. You can do links. You can see what's been brought out of this. So you can see what was the input, what was the output. We got the display name, Manuel, training. So this is all the stuff it extracted, right? All those options. So apparently I have no skills listed. I might have to address it. But yeah, we can watch and monitor these executions, right? So do remember though, this is all about executions. So if you know something doesn't need to happen right now, if my team didn't know I was doing this webinar and they just kept adding files into there, this is going to keep on running and executing. So definitely, if you know it doesn't need to happen because that's going to cost money, hit the little turn off button. And it is indicated in your My Flows, like I said, it does get grayed out like that. So you kind of you're confident and know that's not running. So you don't have to delete these items, which you don't really want to do. Of course, we have the option, if we want to do straight from scratch. So what we can do here is let's do that. All right, I'm going to go through the process. We have a couple of choices here. We do new. You can create from a template, which we've already done. If you create a template within Visio, you can. We have automated, which is what we're going to do, instant or scheduled. So we're going to do the automated option, and it's going to bring us into a blank canvas as soon as we give it a name. So I'll just call it my second flow, and we'll say from blank. Now before, what happened was, this has probably been 2 months ago, but it used to just put you in a canvas and you had to go. This is just kind of a nice little interface. As soon as we do it, it'll add the trigger. But as I mentioned, we need to specify. So the purpose of this flow is that we're going to monitor using my Twitter account. I want to see when a new tweet is posted having a very specific hashtag. So I'm going to just put that. We can go when a new tweet. Let's start typing it in. We can see down here, I'm gonna put a little more so we can specify. There we go. So when a new tweet is posted, that's what I want, and I'm gonna hit create. So it's going through the process, leveraging my connection to it, and we can see all that's left. All you need to do here is put in some text. So I'm gonna put in hashtag Azure. Simple like that, nothing too crazy. And what's nice is also you can minimize this if you just wanna kind of control it, but that is our trigger. Remember, everything starts with a trigger. So let's now add a new step. The step itself, we can see there's controls, CDS. There's some popular ones up here. You can specify by premium, but we know what we want to do on this one is add a fun approval process. So I can just start typing approval. It tells us here we can do approval. So if you kind of click on this, it filters down actions to only approvals. Okay, well, what type of approval do we want to do? And you can see we're going to do we want to create an approval or do we want to just start and wait for an approval? I'm going to go ahead and start and wait for an approval V2. It's just the newer version. They made some updates on mappable fields. So I'm going to choose that option, okay? And when we do this, we first have to decide. Now, our decision here will dictate what options we will have available within this action. So we have a choice, approve, reject. Everyone must approve. Approve, reject, first to respond, which is what we're going to be doing. Custom responses, notice though that these are premiums, right? So we're going to do approve and reject first to respond, and then voila, we get the rest of the choices that are made at our disposal, and we can just populate this accordingly. So since we have this at our disposal, we have all those options, all those output, that dynamic context from that Twitter trigger. So we're left to kind of add this in. So we know a tweet's going to come down. I want to approve to see if I want to tweet it back out. So what I can do is say retweet approval request. This is hard coded, so you want to think about spaces and all that. Take that into account. And I'm going to go ahead down here and I'm going to just put in the tweet text. So I'm going to find this. I can go a little further to minimize this. There we go. Tweet text. So that's going to be the title of this. Who is this going to be going to? Now, we could make this dynamic, right? We could do a group, security group. Once again, though, I'm going to start typing in my name with O365. I can pick myself. Now, just in case this is just from working with this, it says it's not valid. That's only because when we use this, it does put a semicolon expecting another email. You just back out of that, and we're good. We're solid. So we've got who we're emailing it to. What are going to be the details? So what's going to be in the body of that? And we'll say, I'll do the same thing. I'll do tweet text, tweeted, oh, got to put in here, space, tweeted by, and we'll just put tweeted by, right? I'm just taking advantage of this, making it dynamic at what time? It tells me what time it was done. If we wanted to add a link, we could. If we wanted to add some sort of description, we could. And do we want notifications? Basically, do we want this to kind of pop up whenever this goes through? And yes, I do. But we're not done yet. And you know what, just in case, let's save this. Always good. Save early, save often, right? And then I'll minimize this once it's done saving, because the last piece, I know we're coming to the end of our time here, but let's add in the condition. So the option is going to be approve or reject. You can see it right in the top. We'll see that when it comes through to my email. So I'm going to add a new step, and this time we're going to add a control. All right, and it's actually right at the top here, but if you click control here, you get all your versions, and I'm going to do a condition. We get the branch. The first piece we need to decide is the actual evaluation. So what is the condition that we're evaluating here? So in our case, it's based off of a response. So an approval is going to go out. There's going to be a response to it. So if we look within this dynamic context, the content part, we have responses. I know it seems a little odd, you might think response, but remember there's a potential that there could be multiple responses. So it's labeled responses. So we're saying, whatever value we get back from this, because the flow is going to pause. The start and wait, that's what we chose, start and wait for an approval. That is going to pause. So as soon as it finds a tweet, this is going to go, certainly, I'm going to get an email, but I'm not going to retweet anything until I get something back here. So when the response is equal to, and you got a lot of different operators here, and we're going to say approve. I know you might want to think approved. I know it's very natural, but you got to be actually text specific here. So what is going to come back? When response is equal to approve, when that evaluates to true, so that's what we're saying, when this evaluates to true, you can't add multiple conditions. When it's true, then what do you want to do here? So for me, I'll just do something simple. We're going to post a tweet. Let's see if it comes up for me nice and simple. There it is. And then what do we want to put in here? I'm just going to simply put the tweet text. That's all. Oops, we got to put that over here. Tweet text. Now, if we think about this, right, we just had an approval process. And if we go back on top, you can see approval ID, the completion name. So what we could do is the requesters, if you go up here, we have a request date, we have the responses email, you have a lot of options when it comes here. So what's really cool is, think about this, we could see with an approval process, get an email like who approved it, and then immediately if we say yes, send them back an email and say, hey, guess what? Your vacation's approved, or this and that, or your hours that you put in approved. So there's a lot we can do here. We're doing Twitter, but imagine with automating some emails or something. Let's monitor a SharePoint list. Let's monitor anything. Let's do an approval process. Let me see what someone's doing here, and then let's take the respective actions when I say yes or when I say no. So this is all set. We got this set. If it's yes, I don't have to do anything for yes and or no. If in this case, if I say no, don't approve, just don't do anything. I don't want a tweet to happen. I don't want to log it. We could do anything, But this effectively is set and it's done. Now, as soon as we hit save, this is actually out there and it's going to be running, right? So remember, this is a little scary, but it says saved there. This is actually active and on its way. And notice it's already gone. So if I already go over here to my Twitter account, there's been stuff added in there. Hashtag Azure. So this was, these are little older ones. Let's see if mine's going here. Oh, just running. Why is it running? Geesh. Look at all this, right? There's a request here, and I can approve or reject this. Now, just in case you can see it, I also see them here as well. I have those three. So in the time frame we've done this, I have 3 requests to accomplish here. So we can go either way. If we go through, let's see, what's this one called? Quick start. I think I already tweeted that one, maybe. I just want to look at something that's new, right? Yeah, why not? So I'm going to go ahead and approve it. And if we want, we could put a reason and hit submit. As long as everything's set up on my Twitter account, which I don't think anything there is especially done. Let's see here, it might take a second to show up, but eventually it's going to show up here. Make sure here, let's look at this flow. Succeeded. Let's make sure everything looks good. The condition is not there. Let's see. Make sure. Oops. Let's go ahead and edit this. Yeah. So it should go in here. It might just be a slight delay on my account here, but it will eventually kick off and go through here. But that's the main process. And you can monitor, as we saw, if you go to the flows area, you can go ahead and keep and see these executions. So I'm going to keep on I did a pretty hefty hashtag Azure. I'm going to keep on getting requests for this. So I'm actually going to turn this off, but it's just going to keep piling in my inbox, right? I can deny requests as I see fit and go through the process, and it'll all be the same. So we got that set, taken care of. Oh, darn, I went a little bit close to the line there. Let me just see real quick if you guys are still with me. Let me look real quick. There's quite a few of you. If you don't mind, I'm going to look for any quick, fast answers that I think will be impactful for everybody to know. Sorry, I'm trying to drag out the questions real quick. Okay, I think because we're at the 12 mark, a few of the people that asked the questions are gone. What if the email needs to be sent to someone else? Absolutely. You can absolutely send. I mean, if we remember in this edit, I just physically input this information around who this need to be emailed to, right? You could set this to be automatic. You can do an AD security group. You could do an individual user. You could have this be derived. If you could, I don't think Twitter gives the name, but I don't think it has the email of the user. But you could. There's a lot of different things we can do here using that dynamic content, depending on which actions we've done, what triggers we've done here. Is there a way to run a report for each flow you have, basically to look and note the indications of like all executions? I think that's what we're looking at. So you can kind of see yeah, sure. So there's going to be, that's one thing that's right now is a little bit lacking in the Power Platform as a whole, is this concept of administrative reporting to kind of get a general idea. Now you can view all the flows from a global administrator perspective. You actually have a way that you can see all environments and all flows together, but the reporting is a little bit lackluster, and that's been something that's been mentioned that's going to be improved upon. So hopefully soon. So I'm going to grab one more, but like I said, don't worry, guys. I get all these questions, and I'm going to do my best. As long as we have your email address, I'll try to get those responses to you guys, okay? So let me see what the last one. For a group flow, how can I change the email of the person an email is coming from? So it's all specific on the connector. Tequila. So it's all specific on the connector. The question was, for a group flow, how can I change the email of the person an email is coming from? And actually, they're in Office 365. If we kind of go back as well, go back to this flow right here. If we kind of look here, you also have this capability. I believe this in the advanced area. You can do it from send as. So that's another way. You can either kind of do it from this regard, make this dynamic or hard code it, or within the connector itself. I used my Quintana Pragmatic Works. Basically, it needs to have some sort of SMTP server as long as with the access to that server. So you could use a service account, an AD service account. You could just do a send as option here. So there's definitely options you can do that. All right, guys. Well, I tend to go long on my webinars, and I apologize. I've done it again. But I appreciate everybody, staying with me on the call itself. If you asked a question, don't worry. Like I said, Crystal will make sure I get that. If I don't answer immediately, I apologize. I'm going to go see FC Barcelona play in Miami tomorrow. Go Barcelona. But as soon as I get back in sound, I'll make sure to address those questions, answer them. Like I said, if you're not part of the on-demand learning platform, get a trial, 7 days. We've got intro, advanced flow, power platform, all of it. So check it out. It's free for 7 days. Why not? And you get to hear my, exciting voice more, because I'm one of the trainers who do those recordings. So absolutely check it out. And don't forget about the Azure Data Week coming up, guys. I appreciate you once again. Thank you so much. For those of you who are on that East Coast with me, now it's time to have some lunch. But I know I'll see you guys in the future, maybe at a SQL Saturday, Dashboard Day, something like that. Hopefully we'll meet and we'll be in touch. Everybody take care.
All right, thank you, Manuel. We appreciate you hosting the webinar. And like Manuel was saying, we will have the recordings up for tomorrow. All of our recordings are on YouTube now, so you guys can see the past and the present ones too as well. But they'll be all up tomorrow. So if you guys will also receive a link in your inbox tomorrow with this recording. But if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Manuel or myself. And like you said, Azure Data Week is coming up, so feel free to look into that. And for those who, the 26% that wants to still register for the Power Platform Conference, you can easily do so at powerplatformcon.com. So if you guys need that link still, I will put it in the chat really quickly. And you guys can email me and I'll send that and I'll put that in the email as well for tomorrow. But Moel, thank you again for hosting. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. And everybody else have a wonderful day.